Thanks everybody for coming. We had such a good time with Meherwan last. Wow, a, a you're a guest in demand, Meherwan. I'm so glad that you're back.
Okay,
Um,
glad to be back. Thank you.
I thought I would start off by just telling you a little bit about Meherwan, and then we have a slideshow that Ruthie prepared, a very short slideshow of photos of Roda, and then we will hear Meherwan's Meherwan's tale about his mom. So uh, Meherwan tells me that he and his wife Zenobia have lived in Matamoros, Pennsylvania for 13 years. He was a general surgeon, and he retired in 2009. They have three children, whom they raised in Matamoros, uh, and so that's them. That's Meherwan and Zenobia, and he kindly agreed to tell us about his mom, Rhoda. So looking forward to that. I'm going to now share screen to show you the video of that Ruthie prepared. The first clip is actually the cover of a CD that 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 Rainey and Huey MacDonald produced. Okay, let me see if I'm doing this right now. Okay.
घर आओ प्रीतम प्यारा है तुम बिन सब जग खारा घर आओ प्रीतम प्यारा तन मन धन सब बेत करूं तन मन धन सब बेत करूं और भजन करूं मैं सारा घर आवो प्रीतम प्यारा घर आवो प्रीतम प्यारा तुम गुणवंत बड़े गुण सागर मैं हूँ गुणहारा प्यारा मैं हूँ गुणहारा तुम गुणवंत बड़े गुण सागर मैं हूँ गुणहारा आवो प्रीतम प्यारा घर आवो प्रीतम प्यारा मैं निर्गुणी गुण एक नाही तुझ में भी गुण सारा मैं निर्गुणी गुण एक नाही तुझ में भी गुण सारा मीरा कहे प्रभु कब ही मिलोगे मीरा कहे प्रभु कब ही मिलोगे बिन दर्शन दुखियारा प्यारा बिन दर्शन दुखियारा घर आओ घर आओ घर आओ घर आओ प्रीतम प्यारा है तुम बिना सब जग खारा घर आओ प्रीतम प्यारा। अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय।
So, Jai Baba. The song she was singing, can you hear me? Yeah. The song she was singing is Gar Avo Pritam Piara, and it means "Come home, my beloved sweetheart." And the CD I didn't mention is it's Roda singing various bhajans for Baba. So, Meherwan, at this point, the floor is yours.
Jai Baba, folks. I'm going to start off with a brief statement, and then I will give a short narration of how the Dadachanji family came to Baba, and then some incidences in my mom's early life that she recalled and which I still remember that she had told me. And some of them are very instructive and still guide me today now in how we lead our lives. So I would like to share that. Now, the statement that I will start off with is that the greatest gift and inheritance any parent can ever bestow upon their children is to lead them to the shelter, solace, and guidance at the feet of the most perfect one. This our parents, Roda and Jim Mistry, did for their 3 children, Framrose, Sarosh, and I. They fully discharged their parental and family responsibilities and obligations, and for which we will forever remain grateful to our beloved Master Avtar Meher Baba for placing us under their guardianship. So having made this statement, I will now briefly narrate how the entire Dadachanji family came to Baba. And like everything in life, there is a turning point at some period, a pivoting point. And that happened in the life of Framrose Dadachanji. He was from a family of 5 male and 1 female. And his brother was Naoroji. And Naoroji was my grandfather, my maternal grandfather. He was the father of 7 children. He and Bachamai were the parents of 7 children. 3 girls, Nawaz, first Nargish and my mom Roda, and then followed by 4 sons, Stenton, Huma, Dara, and Noza. So that was Naoroji's side of the family, and they were both brothers, Naoroji and Framrose. Naoroji was 8 years older to Framrose. They both got married on the same day, on Christmas Day, 1916. And Chanji was at that time 24 years of age, and he was not spiritually inclined or any such thing. And he was married to a very beautiful woman. And just after 4 years of marriage, the woman left him and went away with his best friend, Chanji's best friend. So that was a big shock to him. Now Chanji was involved in managing a movie theater in Bombay, but he mainly wanted to be a co-owner of a movie theater. So he went into a partnership. He had to borrow money to buy into a partnership with another person. And they were running this movie theater, and it was very prosperous. But somehow, every year he would be showing losses. the books will be showing losses, and people will be the people who had loaned him the money were wondering how come he's not paying back when the movie theater is running at full shows, full capacity. So what was happening was he was getting embezzled by his own partner. His own partner embezzled him from his partnership and made him sign some papers, which he naively signed without even reading. And then it went into litigation. His debtors forced him to go into to sue in court, which they did. But he had signed everything, done everything the right way, and the judge had to give the judgment in favor of his partner who embezzled. But he warned him. He says, it is so obvious that you have taken advantage of this gullible man, and my hands are tied, so I have to give the judgment in your favor. But remember that there is a higher justice that awaits you, and that what this court can give, and you will have to face it at that time. So he warned him about it, but Chanji lost everything. In a span of 4 years, from the time of 1920 when his wife left him, to 1923 was his first meeting with Baba. And the way it happened was he had become now very depressed. He was miserably in debt with no ability to pay back the money to his debtors. And so he decided to end it all by committing suicide. So he goes to the beach and he's sitting there one evening, waiting for the beach to empty out from the people, from the crowds, and that he would just walk into the ocean and drown. Now, at that time, Baba was in Bombay and was decided to take a walk at that very time that this is happening. And he happens to see a man sitting on a bench, and the person with Baba at that time was Nawal Talati. And Baba says, who is that man? Go find out. What is he doing there? So that was very strange. Baba is interested in a person's stranger sitting on a bench. So he goes, and when he comes nearby, he realizes that that's Faramuz Dadachanji. They knew each other. They were acquaintances. And he also knew that he had come upon hard times. So he said, he goes and tells Baba, and that I know him, and he's come upon some very hard times in life. So Baba said, have him come and see me tomorrow. And they were staying in that place in Bombay. So he gave the name and have him come and see me. So Nawal goes back. Baba is standing at a little distance away from where he was sitting. So he would send Nawal, and Nawal would communicate, go back and forth. So Nawal went and told Chanji that the person with me there is Meher Baba, and he'll be able to help you. So he wants to come and see you tomorrow. Now Chanji somehow said, yes, okay, I will. He wanted to get rid of him, so he said yes. So then he goes back and tells Baba that he agreed to come. So Baba tells him again, go take his promise that he will come. So again, about the third time, Nawal goes and says, can you please give me a promise that you will show up tomorrow? So he gave the promise, and then he suddenly realized, and then Baba walked away. Baba, along with Nawal, walked away. And then he realized, why did I give this promise? I will now have to postpone what I was supposed to do. And well, what difference one day will make? And so to keep his word, he postpones his committing suicide that evening and goes back home. Next day morning, Baba is very impatient and says, go get him. That was before the time that he was supposed to come. Says, go and get him right now. So Chanji is brought before Baba. Nawal goes and brings him to Baba, and he pours out his heart to Baba. Baba hugs him, and the moment that happened, he forgot all the thoughts about committing suicide disappeared. Yeah. And Baba said to him, will you do what I tell you? So but he agreed. He said, Baba tells him then, leave everything and come to me. And then he tells Chanji that your love for your wife is only Maya, but I will show you the highest type of love. And so this was in 1923. It was a period after the Banzilamin period. And in around, Baba gives him a certain number of time to settle his worldly affairs there and come and join him in the ashram at Meherabad. And this was around 1923. So when he joins Baba in 1924, Baba was still speaking at that time. It was around the same time that Mehera had come to Baba with her mother, Daulatma. She was 16 years, 17 years old at that time. So Chanji joined Baba at the age of 31 in 1924. And then from there on served him for the next 20 years of his life. And he used to do the correspondence, make extensive notes and keep diaries. And this he did till he died. So, and he was Baba's first secretary. And he was also the recipient of a lot of thrashings from Baba too. And Chanji would say, well, Baba, you are the master, you have the authority. So you can do this. And he would accept one. He would annoy Baba in certain ways, in his mannerisms of the way he would respond. And he was a recipient of a lot of thrashings from him. He was very fortunate for that too. He realized that as well. And the highest tribute that Chanji ever got was posthumously. When he died, Baba said, Chanji was not only my disciple, but he was my friend. So that was the story of Chanji. Now Chanji, in between, when he joined Baba, Baba would send him to Bombay for some work, and he would be meeting up with the rest of his family and talk about Baba. And they would listen, and he would get them interested. And it so happened that my grandpa, Naoroji, my mother's father and brother of Chanji, happened to get a contracting job in Pune. He was an architect and a contractor. And he got a job constructing a hostel, an engineering hostel in Pune, and this was around 1926. So while they were there, it was about 2 years after Chanji had joined Baba. Chanji must have asked Baba's permission to bring his family to him, and Baba agreed. And so on a weekend, they decided to pay a day visit to Meherabad from Pune on a day picnic. And at that time, an 18-year-old or 19-year-old college student, engineering college student by the name of Meherji Karkaria, whom you may have heard of his name, he was one of Baba's Manli, for the first time meets Baba too, because he joined them on that picnic. So at that time, my grandpa, grandma, Andavas was 8 years old, Nargish 6, and my mom was 2 years old. And the Tinton, the eldest, the first brother, was just 2 months old. So that's how the first coming to Baba happened in 1926. So this is how the family came to Baba. And then ever since, they become his takes time to get to know his ways, what he likes, what would please him, how to live the way he would like us to. And that took time, and they learned all of these things as they were going, as their contact with Baba increased. So then, the earliest memories that I have of my mom telling stories about Baba was when when we were young, living in an apartment, she would she would be telling us stories about Baba, stories about, she would read stories about saints, about the past masters. And so we grew up in that environment. And she also had the, she would be playing bhajans on the records, the gramophone record, those 78 RPM records. We do probably, some of us have not even seen them, the newer generation, but in those times it was a gramophone. And you have to wind the gramophone and play those records, the 78 RPM records. And she would play those Meera bhajans. And then she would sing along with that. And so I still play these same songs in my head, even now, 60 years later. I still remember that. They are deeply embedded into my memories. So this was the upbringing we had. We would be visiting with Baba whenever we allowed us to visit with him. And she would take us, and every opportunity we got, she would make sure that we would be there. So we are very fortunate to have parents like that, who gave us that opportunity. Yeah. Now, the earliest, before that, before we were living in our apartment, before she even got married, she was around 8 years old, my mom, and this is what she had told me. I still remember that. She remembers living in a place called Banu Lodge in Dada, and that place was just across from Manzil Amin, where Baba had stayed there 12 years earlier in 1923 or 22. I think it was 22, 23. Yes, 22, 23. And they were in Banu Lodge, staying there in 1934, and my mom was 8 years old. And she also remembered that while they were staying there, that Baba's mother, Shirin Mai, Baba had sent them that Shirin Mai and also Behram and Perin. Behram is the father of Sorab and Rustam, the twins, and also of Sheru. Sheru was the elder brother to Sorab Rustam by 10 years. So, and Perin, my mom was, Perin was pregnant with Sheru at that time. And they were living there in Banu Lodge. And the reason Baba had sent them to stay in Bombay was there was a lot of harassment that they underwent. Shirin Mai had to undergo while they were living in Pune. The families around there were giving them such a hard time, creating problems for them, talking, disparaging Baba, and mocking and ridiculing. So she couldn't take it anymore. And so for a while, Baba arranged for her to go and live in Bombay. And when she comes and lives in Bombay, the same thing happens in Bombay. The people in that same neighborhood, that same building, started the same scene, opposing her, ridiculing her, and then but she was a fighter, the Shirin Mai. And she would answer back, and she would stand up her grounds, and they would pressurize the landlord to get her out, and the landlord would want her to leave. And she would say, "Why, my money is not good enough for you?" So she would answer back like that. So my mom remembered that in the evenings when she would come from school, she would be sitting outside the house, their apartment, Shirin Mai, and she would beckon out to my mother. She said, "Yeah, young girl." It was a Pori. Pori means young girl. "Come here." And then she would say, "Press my legs and press my calves. They're hurting me. They're very sore. They're tired." So she remembers doing that. And then she would, after 5-10 minutes would pass by, she would think, when is this lady going to let me go? Give me the permission to go so I can go and play with my friends. So every day she would try to make sure that she was not there before, and she would try to avoid her, but she would somehow or the other catch hold of her and make her press her calves and her feet. And then after 10 minutes or so, 12, 15 minutes at the most, she would say, "Now go play." So she remembered that, and she told me that. So I still remember that. So this was in 1934. Then another time that Now, all this is happening at different times. And some of the, at the spur of a moment, she would start telling me about a story, about an incident, and it would be out of the blue, no relationship to what the conversation was. But then I would listen, and it would be embedded deep inside my brain, because they were such lovely stories. And one day she was with the family, had gone with to visit with Baba, and I don't know what place it was. I forget now, but she was sitting on the patio along with Mera and Mani, and all of a sudden Baba walked in from the compound into the patio, going into the room, and he stopped, and then looking at my mother, and then turned to Mera and Mani and says, "I'm going to perform her wedding." He made the sign of the wedding ring. "I'm going to perform her wedding." And that was it. And then he walked away. So she remembered that, and she told me that. So that's how I remember it as well. So then I will tell you now, as these are the points that I've written down so I could recall right now, because my memory, my old memory is extremely vivid, but my recent memory is not so good. I forget what I did yesterday. I drive past my house several times. It's not, my wife says it's not that bad. Anyway, so, but it's, my past memory is like it happened yesterday. I can still picture it in my head. Anyway, so now the other thing that she remembered, and I still remember so well. This happened one day, and my mom would, as she grew up, now she was married, she had kids. I must be at least maybe 10 years old or so, something like that. And whenever we went to our family, they would all knew about Baba, but none of them really believed in Baba. They didn't even accept him. In fact, they would, and you could tell, but sometimes they would make very sarcastic remarks, disparaging remarks about Baba. And so, and they also knew that that if you gave my mom the slightest chance or opportunity, she would start talking about Baba. So sometimes they would intentionally provoke her into a talk, so that they would have the opportunity to do some ridiculing or make some jokes about. So this would happen, and I would notice it, and it happened 2 or 3 times. And then one day, as we were walking back home, I said to my mom, I couldn't take it anymore. I said, "What is with her? I mean, doesn't she realize that they're purposely doing this and just to get a talking about Baba, and then they will make all these remarks?" And I would get upset, but she was totally unconcerned. So I told her, "What, don't you realize what they're doing?" So then she tells me this. He said that if you truly believe and have unwavering faith, then never shun ridicule or contempt or disgrace. You must be like a postman. Then she become like a postman, totally unconcerned when he delivers the mail, whether he's bringing you good news or he's bringing you bad news, whether he's bringing you checks in the mail or whether he's bringing you bills to pay. He's not concerned with that at all. And that struck me, yes. Something like a bank teller. You go to the bank, you deposit your money, or you take out money. Either which way, the teller doesn't care where the money came from or how it's going to be spent. So you be like a postman. I remember she telling me that. And then later on, as we were growing up, and I would be more interested in reading about Baba and hearing stories about Baba, similar analogies would come up, and I would recall these incidences. Now, a similar thing like this happened with Maharaj, Upasni Maharaj. When he handed over his charge of his disciples over to Baba, Maharaj commanded them to henceforth follow Baba's instructions. And he said, if I tell you something and Baba tells you something the contrary, follow what he says. stick to him. And then he gave the analogy was a postage stamp, not like my mother was saying about a postman. Maharaj was giving the analogy of a postage stamp. Be stuck on the envelope so that you are certain of reaching the destination that is addressed to. He will take you to your destination. So be stuck on him like a postage stamp. And then later on, I read about Baba giving a similar analogy about like him being the locomotive engine. And all the other coaches that are attached to that engine, whatever they contain, and whoever are the passengers within the coaches, will be taken to the destination. Wherever he goes, we'll go with him, provided we manage to stay inside the coach, because there are many stops on the way. And if we get out and linger around on the stations, then we can miss the train. So that was the analogy of the being like a postman, or like Maharajas with the postage stamp, and with Babas as the locomotive engine, that we have to be stuck on him and attached to him. So that was the incident, one incident that is remain in my memories. Then the other thing that was my mom had the extraordinary ability that she was extremely sensitive and attentive to Baba, what would please him. She had that sensitivity, and she would do whatever it took to please him. And she would always say yes to him, even if it was an unwilling one. Because eventually that unwilling submission gradually will lead us to a complete, most willing, wholehearted surrender. So first comes the submission, even if it's unwilling, then will follow the surrenders. So that's what I learned from that. And how did that express itself in real life incidents? These are the two ones that I recall. One day there was a feast that was going on, and Baba was serving meals to the people there. And so my mother and my grandpa, Naoroji, were standing in the queue with their plates, and Baba would be serving the meals out to the people. And as they got closer to Baba, they realized what Baba was serving. Now, Naoroji and his entire family were vegetarians. They'd never eaten fish or meat up till then. They grew up vegetarians. So they noticed that Baba is serving everybody fish. And the fish was, whatever else was there, vegetables or rice and all, I don't know, but the Baba was serving fish. She at once sensed what was going on in her father's head, Naoroji's head. She knew what he was thinking, and she tells him, if Baba gives you the fish, don't say a word, just take it and eat it. Now, just imagine that, his young kid telling the dad what to do. If Baba gives you the fish, just take it and eat it. So it so happened that when Naoroji was there next in the line, Baba plopped this piece of fish on his plate and whatever else was there, and he took it and stepped ahead. And my mom, he did the same thing with my mom. They both went ahead, then they found a place to sit down, and they started eating the fish. So now they're eating the fish, and as they're eating, Baba then gets up and then walks around and sees everybody, passes by everybody when they're eating. And then he stops at my grandpa's, in front of my grandpa, and says, today I gave it to you and you ate it. I'm very pleased. But from now on, no more. So see what would have happened if he had told Baba, now my grandpa, Baba, I'm a vegetarian. What do you think would have happened? Baba said, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so I will give you something else. So he would have missed out on that opportunity. Why? Because of our own personal likes and dislikes, our self-beliefs and disciplines that we have followed. He would have missed out on that opportunity. But my mother could sense that. As a young kid, she did this. And then Baba tells her, I'm very pleased that I gave it to you anyway. That means he, all the his personal dislikes, he had scruples or didn't mean anything to him. And another similar incident happened, different time. Now you have all heard of Daulat Singh. Daulat Singh was one of the 5 favorite Sikhs, Baba lovers, the great Baba lovers. Daulat Singh was a physician. And he was with Baba at that time, on that occasion, and someone had a lighted cigarette in his hand. Now, in the Sikh religion, they don't smoke. They don't smoke. It's taboo for them to smoke in the Sikh religion. The same thing, the Parsis do the same thing too, but they smoke anyway. Anyhow, Daulat Singh was there. So Baba snatched the cigarette out of the person's hand who had the lighted cigarette and put it in the lips, between the lips of Daulat Singh. Now, Daulat Singh had never smoked ever in his life. And when Baba put the cigarette there, when he realized what Baba had done, he was about to take the inhale, and Baba snatched it out from his lips and threw it away. Again, it showed that he couldn't give a damn about his scruples or his, but as long as he obeyed what Baba was doing. So this is with the incident, the same incident that happened with, you could have said, Baba, I don't smoke. He didn't say that. He was about to inhale, Baba just snatched it back from his lips and threw it away. So these are things that I learned from the stories that my mother would tell us. Another even incident happened, and this was again in my mom's life. One day, they had gone to Baba, and the family within themselves decided that we should match her up with somebody else. And they never even mentioned anything to my mom. They didn't even ask her whether she approved of that or not. On their own, they took it upon themselves to make this match for my mom. And so when they came to Baba, they said, we will ask Baba's permission. And they were all confident that Baba would say yes. There's no reason why I would say no. And and everything would be settled. So when they came before Baba, and when the opportunity came, they mentioned it to Baba. So Baba listened, and then said, but what does Roda have to say about it? Baba is now asking them. They are all taken aback. They had not even asked him. So they say, Baba, we have not even asked her. So Baba was very this thing, and you didn't even bother to ask her. They said, call her. She was there. Roda was there at that time with them, but not in that when this was happening, going on. So call Roda. So Roda comes before Baba, and Baba looks at the family members and says, tell her what you just told me. And so they tell my mom that we have arranged a match for you with this person, and we have come here to ask Baba's permission. So my mother herself was completely surprised and shocked. She was very embarrassed as well, and she didn't know what, and she was just standing in front of Baba. So then Baba says, well, what do you have to say about this? So she said, whatever you wish, Baba. So Baba was very pleased with that. Her answer says, whatever you wish. Now, it was not my mother's wish. She liked the boy, but she didn't like him enough to marry him. So she says, Baba, whatever you wish. So Baba was very pleased with that answer. And he said, I'm happy to hear this, but what do you have to say about it? So then she tells Baba, Baba, I like this person, but he's like a brother to me. So as soon as she said that Baba did this, so that's the end of the matter, and it was over. The matter was settled, and everybody from that time on didn't even bring up the subject again. So you see, but she was ready to if he wanted her to get married to this person whom she was not interested in, she would have done that because it would please him. So that's the takeaway lesson is, and Baba was pleased with. Now see what happens on the other side. A couple of years passed by, and then now my mom is now interested in my dad. They had gotten to know each other, and so then they had met for a short time, and my dad must have proposed to her. So she tells my dad that she would, before she would give her answer, she would first have to obtain Baba's permission. So this caught my dad off guard, and he was very surprised. He says, "But if Baba says no, you mean you won't marry me?" He says, "Of course not." So when she said that, but then she also explained to him that she loved him and she would very much like to get married to him, but before she would accept the proposal, she would have to obtain his permission, as they did for everything else and all important matters in their lives. So, but look, my dad was open-minded. He was the only one from the entire family, his side of the family. There were seven kids in his side of the family as well. And he was the only one to turn to Baba. He had an open mind. Ready acceptance was there. Later on, much later on, one of his sisters came to Baba and their children too. But so he was very accepting, and he agreed. So yes, okay. So he was waiting to get the permission from Baba. At that time also, my dad knew from that moment onwards that if Baba said yes to the marriage, where he would stand in that relationship between him, Baba, and my it would always be Baba who would be the first one, and who would make the final decision. So, and he was ready to accept that. So then what happened was, the next time that the family had to visit with Baba, Baba was told about, so ask how was the trip, how was this, and then he would start take the opportunity and tell Baba what was happening. So says, Baba, Roda is going out with this boy. His name is Mistry. And so Baba at once said, "Oh, he's a very good boy. He's a very good boy. When are they getting married?" Now, see, Baba is asking that question. So says, "Baba, they have just gotten to, they've just known each other. They have no plans have been made for marriage. Now see what's happening." He says, "No," he says, "they should get married soon. They should get married in August," Baba says. Baba gives the month. He says, "They should get married in August, and they can select any day they choose, but they must get married in August." And then he made a remark. He says, if it doesn't happen in August, then I don't know, it may not work. So that warning he gave also. Now, when they came back, my mother told exactly what happened. And she told her that Baba wants the marriage to take place in August. Now, no one gets married in India in that month because it rains there, monsoons. And in the month, the marriages are outdoor affairs. They are large gatherings, celebrations, family members, friends. So they are all outdoor events, and no one gets married during this monsoon season. But when my dad was told that this is what Baba had said, that if they don't get married in August, it may not work out, he went and told his family. He didn't tell him that Baba said that. He said, "I'm going to get married, and I'm going to get married in August." So they were very happy. He was the youngest kid in the family he never wanted to get married, my dad. He was young. He was 32 years old at that time, but very handsome. He was very handsome and very athletic. And he was a champion badminton player and a table tennis player, and had a cupboard full of trophies in the house. And he had his Indian motorcycle and lots of girlfriends. So he never wanted to get married until he met my mom. So you know, the Indian motorcycles, now we have the Harley Davidsons, and in those days was the Indian motorcycle. He had one of those Indian motorcycles. Anyway, so he goes and tells his family, I'm going to get married in August. So they're very happy that he's getting married. He's finally going to get settled down. But why does it have to be in August? Why can't he wait till December? We can have a nice big wedding. He says, no, August. So let him get married in August before he changes his mind. So they go along. But we didn't tell him that Baba has said that. So they do get married in a hotel, in a large reception hall in the hotel, and they got married there. And then they went on a picnic, not picnic, a honeymoon. Can you imagine they went on a honeymoon to Bombay, where it rains even more? You know, so they go for a honeymoon there, and they are the only occupants of the whole hotel. And they can't go outside. They can't step outside their room because it's raining. Day and night it rains. So after a day or two, they get really, they said, this is too much. We have to get out of here. So it's nice to be alone when you're on your honeymoon, but I mean, this is really, you know, it's like in your one room all the time. So anyway, so they decide to come to Pune. So Pune is less rain than Mahabaleshwar. So they come to Pune, and then they notify the family that we are in Pune and we'll spend the rest of our honeymoon in Pune before coming back home. So then what happens is, at that time, Baba was having the a celebration of the housewarming of Meherazad in end of August 1948. So my family, they were invited. So they said, don't come to Bombay, stay right in Pune. We are going to go for the housewarming ceremony to Meherazad, and we'll pick you up and we'll go together. So even before they went home from their honeymoon, my dad and mom went from their honeymoon to Meherazad for the housewarming ceremony there. So that was my dad's first encounter with Baba. And Baba, when the first time he meets Baba, Baba says, the very first question that Baba asks him, do you love me? My dad is taken aback. This is the first time I'm meeting this man, and he's asking me, do I love him? So he says, well, Baba, this is and he was a very upfront man. He would sometimes just say that the things that came in his head, the way it was, the way he saw them. And he said, Baba, this is the first time that I'm meeting you, so I honestly can't say that I love you. But then as I get to know you in time, I might be able to do that. So Baba was very pleased with that. That showed an open mind. And his nature was very jovial. It was, and Baba liked his nature as well. And over time, as he got to know Baba, as he got to know his Manli, again the same way, as he got to know of his ways and what would please him, Baba gave him a lot of opportunities. He would be on the weekends, he would go and visit with Nariman to Baba. He went many times to Meherazad on the weekends in the summer months in Pune. So he had lots of opportunity to be with Baba. And then in time, before you know what happened, he became his lover. Like that. And his family, they tried a lot to, when they realized what was going on, that he's turning more and more towards Baba, they tried a lot to dissuade him, but it didn't work. Actually, it had the opposite reaction. The more they tried to dissuade him, the more he found himself defending Baba, the more he found himself drawn to him. So that's how he came to Baba. But now that's my dad's story. So now we come to another incident that happened. It's a funny one, though, this one. Soon after they had married, and I think it was in 49, Baba had given a 1 month silence to he had asked his lovers to keep a silence. And I think it was almost a period of a month or more. Anyway, so at that time, my mom narrated this incident. But they would carry on life like normal, except that they would communicate with sign language. And the funny thing is that you would think it would be more difficult, but on the other hand, other people, strangers, would go out of their way to help them out. So it made it more easier for them actually. But at the same time, so they had gone for a movie, a movie in the evening, an evening show for a movie, and they were sitting there watching the movie. And my mother started gesturing with and talking to the person next to her. Now she overhears the couple behind, sitting behind her. She says, the couple is saying, "Oh dear, she's such a beautiful woman. But oh, alas, she's so mute." She is mute. Yeah, mute or not. She's a beautiful woman, but she's mute. So these funny incidents were there. I still recall them. But she would laugh. She didn't laugh that time when she heard it. She would, but when she would narrate this incident, that she would laugh like a young girl. And then things like that. And now this was another instructive moment in what I learned. This happened actually in the period in 1960s when we were staying in Mobo's hotel. It was like about a block away from Guru Prasad. And in our summer vacation, we would be there from the middle or third week of April to the first week in June. So like about 6 weeks, we would spend our summer months there. And Baba would allow us to visit in Guru Prasad. Many times he, on his own, would drop by at the hotel. Some impromptu visits. He would go for a morning drive, and on the way back to Guru Prasad, he would stop it. And then meet and so I remember that. So now, yes. So at that time, when Baba we were in the 60s, this was my exposure to Baba, major exposure to Baba was from 1957 through 67. In these periods of time, had an opportunity to meet Baba several times, especially during the summer holidays, where I would be allowed to visit with my grandpa, Naoroji, to Guru Prasad, and be with Baba there in the mornings and also in the afternoons. Falu Sarosh was still very young comparatively at that time, and so they would come only when the whole family was allowed to come. So now what I'm going to tell you is, but before I tell you the story, it's a very, very nice incident happened, which if I don't mention now, I'll forget. One of these visits that Baba would come to the hotel, he came one day, and my mother would, we were on the ground floor, so he would come in, and my mother would spread a sheet around the chair that he would sit on. And then this time he had come with the women. And the women were there, and so hurriedly she went and got some, soft soda water bottles, not soft drinks, and there were like 3 or 4 bottles. Not many were there available. So Baba would serve everybody, maybe 2 or 3 people from one bottle. So we were all standing there and getting our share of the drinks, and then I was there, and then Falu. And by the time it came to Sarosh, my youngest brother, all the bottles were empty. Now Baba has this empty bottle in his hand. Sarosh has this empty cup in his hand. And he's standing in front of Baba. And then Baba takes that empty bottle, soda bottle, and then pours it into his cup. But there's nothing in the bottle. And Sarosh can see that. Everybody else is seeing it as well. And Baba is going through the motion of putting in that last few drops in that bottle in his cup. Now everybody is expecting to see what is going to happen next. And then Baba looks at Sarosh and says, drink it. And Sarosh was standing with that empty glass. At once, without the least hesitation, puts the glass to his lips and starts drinking, as if really it was the soda in this glass. Not only does it drink, he does this too in the end, like just like Baba was pouring it out, the last drop. When Baba saw that, everybody is now amazed. Baba says, see, Baba is telling everybody, see what this young kid has done. Says, see what he has done. Obeyed. So that was spontaneous obedience. And so that incident came to my head right now. So I didn't want to miss it saying that. But the other incident that I was talking about, which I diverted, was this. So my mom would cook for Baba like twice a week or something like that. Whenever she was told Baba would like to have this meal, so they would call her, and then I would go to the bazaar on my bicycle, bring whatever was needed, and then she would cook in a little stove in the hotel room. And then after the cooking was done, it would be wrapped up, and either I would take it on my bicycle to Guru Prasad, or if I was not there, my mom would have to walk over with them. So this time, when this incident happened, I was not there, and she was cooking. And on that day, her friend, her Khorshid Khan, her friend, she is the mother of Jibi Khan. They used to stay in a small room next to our own room where we were. But Khorshid and her daughter Bapsi, they were living there. The other family would come over the weekends. So she was there with my mom as she was cooking for Baba. So after they cooked the meal, wrapped it up, and they started to walk to take the meal to Guru Prasad. So when the meal is, when they're walking into the compound, Guru Prasad had main entrance and a side entrance. So they would enter from the side entrance so as to not be noticeable from the front entrance. They would come on the side and then hand over the meal, and then it would be put in the kitchen, and then they would walk back. They would not necessarily meet Baba. But this time when they were walking here, Baba was sitting on the veranda with the women. So somebody from the women said, oh, here comes Roda and Khorshid with your meal. Baba says, call them. So they both come before Baba. And Baba meets Khorshid, gives her a hug, and then meets by Baba and gives her a hug. And then Baba looks at her, makes a funny face and says, your hands smell of onions. Your hands are smelling of onions. So my mom gently nodded, didn't say anything, just gently nodded. And everybody around her are aghast. He says, what? She cooked for Baba, and she didn't even bother to wash her hands when she brought this meal to him. So then again, after a few seconds, Baba says, your hands definitely smell of onions. Again, my mother gently nods, doesn't say anything. Then all of a sudden, Baba's expression was very happy. He smiled, the beaming smile, says, come, give me another hug. And he hugged my mother. And that was it. This is now go. Now, as they're walking back to the hotel, Khorshid was totally says, Roda, when Baba told you that your hands smell of onions, why did you not tell him that you have not even been near an onion? You didn't chop any onions today. Not only that, they were never near an onion. So why didn't you tell him that? And he asked you twice. So my mom says, she just replied with one sentence, says, never contradict your master. So everybody else is thinking that Roda didn't wash her hands. But Khorshid knew that she was not near an onion. And yet she didn't tell Baba, no, Baba, I didn't touch it. But she didn't do that. She says, never contradict your master. And that Baba alludes to in that second couplet of Hafiz. The 3 couplets of Hafiz that is there in Baba's bedroom about what you hear from the master. Never say it is wrong because, my dear, the fault lies in your own incapacity to understand him. And whatever he says is always the truth. Nothing can come from him which is not the truth. So if we take it to be anything else or otherwise, it's our own incapacity. So this was the incident of the hands smelling of onions. Now, I don't know how much time we have, but I have 2 more incidences to say, but if I have time, otherwise I'll just cut it short and give you what the last one.
Continue. We have time. We have time.
Okay.
I believe we have another hour.
Okay. So then the next thing that happened, my dad, when he was, this happened in the 60s. So he had a heart attack, and he had a heart attack right in front of Baba in Grouperson. And he got well from it, and Baba had sent him back home to Bombay, and my mom was probably concerned. So when she had met Baba says, "Don't worry about Jim. He's going to grow into an old man and walk with a stick. He's going to grow into an old man and walk with a stick." This is what Baba told my mom. He says, "Don't worry about him." So then what happened was, my dad had this phlebitis in his legs, and every now and then the ulcers would flare up, and it would take weeks to heal, and he would have swelling on his legs. So at that time, if it was painful, he would limp, and Baba knew that. So, but he also, when he knew that Baba said he's going to grow an old man and walk with a stick, he never used a walking stick. He says, as long as I don't use a walking stick, I'm going to be alive. I'm kidding. That's what I thought. That's what I'm saying. He must be thinking that. As long as I don't use a walking stick, I'm going to be alive. But Baba said he's going to go into an old man and walk with a walking stick. So many times when he would return to India for visits, one time we had gone to, I think, Panjgani, and we bought nice walking sticks from there. They sell nice walking sticks. So we bought a couple of them, and I gave it to my dad. But you know what? He took the sticks and put it on top of the cupboard. He never used it once. He took all of those sticks and put it on top of the cupboard. He would limp along, but never use those sticks. Anyway, so that was fun. After a while, many years passed by. In 96, he passed on. And after he had passed on, the thought came to me. After all, he did not walk with a stick. Baba said that he would grow old and walk with a stick. And after all, he didn't walk with a stick. But then I see how the mind works. So I said, whatever Baba says has to come to pass, or we don't understand, one of the two. See what happened now. Maybe a year or two later, when we come back to India again, after my dad has passed away. It had to be in 97 or 2000. And I was going from Meherabad, where we were staying to Meherazad, and we were sitting in the bus, the trust bus, going to Meherazad. And I happened to, there was an empty seat, and there was a lady there, and so I sat next to her. And so we introduced ourselves and made some small talk. I'm Meherwan Mistry, and she said, I'm Heidi Cook. And then she says, oh, I was here in Meherabad when your dad was cremated. So, and then on her own, she started talking. She says, I had a very vivid dream. It was very strange, a vivid dream. And in the dream, I see your dad. This was on the fourth day after he had died. On the fourth day, he was cremated, and cremation was over. And the fourth day, she's in front of Baba's. In the dream, she's sitting in front of Baba's samadhi, and out in the dream, she sees my dad walk out of Baba's samadhi. He's wearing a stripped pajama. Can you imagine that stripped pajama? And he's walking out with a stick. Now, Heidi had no clue of all this history behind. And I said, really? And when she mentioned that, it struck me. My dad did have striped pajamas. And he was wearing the very pajamas that she saw in her dream, and she saw him with the sticks walking out of Baba's samadhi. So when I heard that, it was an amazing thing, that what Baba had told my mother 3 decades ago came to pass, but it was in Heidi's dream. Heidi saw it, I didn't see. So I remember that. So these are little amusing incidences, but we write them off as coincidences, but whatever he says comes to pass. And then the last one, and this is actually the most important one. I saved it for the last. This was also when we had gone to India. At that time, I was a full-fledged surgeon and in practice, and we were there. I think it was in Meherabad, and she told me, always consider Baba as your very own child. I remember that very well. So, and then later on, it came back to me that one day in the 60s, at Guru Prasad, there was a musical program there, and in between the interlude, in between songs, the people were sitting on the carpet in front of Baba. A young woman turns to Baba, seeking the right opportunity, and says, Baba, how do we relate with you? So Baba looked at her and said very simply, just as you would with your own child. Just as you would with your own child. So that incident again came back to me. And here's my mom telling me the same thing with your own child. And Baba has said that so many times. Make me yours, just as I have made you eternally mine. Then he says the same thing again in the song he wrote, Ishtiyaki. I will become yours when you have become mine. So that's what we have to do, to strive to become his and make him ours. Now, and in conclusion, I'd like to say just this thing. It's important. Obedience requires the master's command, and it is specific and obligatory upon the individual who has been ordered to carry it out dutifully. Dear Baba has said, obedience is the master's gift to man. You need the master to give you the command and to obey. On the other hand, anyone at any time can try to seek the master's pleasure by acting and living in accordance and in a manner that would please him. And to do this, the master's physical presence is not necessary. and it is spontaneous, voluntary, willing effort on any individual's part. Without this effort, there can be no grace. Without enduring toil and pain, there can be no gain. And without the tilling and the sowing, there can be no reaping or harvesting. May we remain resolved and determined in becoming His and make Him our very own by continually trying to please Him. That day will surely come when His grace, by His grace, we will be able to offer Him the one real gift of our own self-surrender. Meher Baba also said, surrender is man's gift to the Master. And with that, I conclude. Jai Baba.
Wow, thank you, Meherwan. That was wonderful, wonderful. Very thought-provoking. Lots of good, good advice. Thank you so much. I know there are people here who knew your mother or your family and might want to, if anybody would like to ask a question or tell a story, this is time, a time that you could do that. I just, your mom, I just had one little incident. I bought a sari and I could not figure out how to work it. So I had to come over to your house, her house down there in Lower Meherabad, and she wrapped me up and made it right. She was great.
Can you wear it now?
Never again. Where she wasn't there, I couldn't remember. Alan has something to say.
Actually, Karen has something to say.
Okay.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Meherwan. So wonderful to hear your stories. I, of course, remember your parents at Meherabad, and I clearly remember your mother at Meherazad. But I have a memory of your mother in Myrtle Beach, and it would have been maybe the late 70s.
Yeah.
And Rabia was born. I don't know what year that was.
77.
Okay, so it was 1977, and I was in Baba's room, and there was this most beautiful woman wearing a sari, holding a newborn child. She probably was a few months. I don't know how old, but it was Roda, and it was just beautiful, and that memory has stayed with me over the years. So I just wanted to share it, and so lovely to see you both. Jai Meher Baba.
Jai Baba.
Well, as long as I'm here, I do have one memory. After your mom passed, and I can't quite recall the year, in early 2000s, I believe, correct?
2006. Yeah.
2000. Okay. So I called your house to extend Karen and my condolences to you and Zenobia and the family. And you were at the hospital in New York. And Jamshed answered. He was just living there then. And so we were talking. I found out what he was doing and how he was doing and how the family was doing. And we started talking about your mom. And he said, yes, my grandmother was a lucky woman. And I said, sweetheart, there was no luck involved. She earned every penny of the path. She was a remarkable soul. And you're blessed, I said to him, to be part of such a wonderful, wonderful family. So I wanted to say that because I never talked to you after that or after your mom's passing. I've talked to you, but not about that. That's it.
Thank you. So Betty, no more hands up. So
Yes. Oh,
it's about
you have the floor. Or, I know Judy has something to say. Did you have something to interject here? No, we'll talk. Okay, Judy, go ahead.
Meherwan, first of all,
hi, Jay
I'm
Baba.
so Jay Baba, and thank you for such a heartfelt and the image that you painted for us this morning of your mother was so accurate from my fortunate experience of knowing her for I don't know, close to 20 years or more. And I think I first knew your mother when I became a resident and was able to do, by Baba's grace somehow, samadhi duty each day. And Rhoda was really largely in charge of the samadhi at that point. Even when Nanakar was still with us, he would lead the artis in the morning and evening, but it was your mother that really took care, made sure that the portico was clean, the inside. Anyway, she was Baba's pillar at the samadhi for many, many years. And in her usual way, so quietly, so unassumingly, that basically hardly anybody ever noticed. But the story I most want to share, I shared actually with you recently when you gave a talk on Zoom. But I think there's a number of people that may be here today that weren't here at that time. And for me, this one vignette captures so much of the incredible qualities of love and obedience to Mayor Baba that that you so well expressed in your talk. And she lived, in my experience, every moment of her life. So I was one of the fortunate folks that had the opportunity to take care of Rhoda after she broke her hip. And because of her heart condition, she couldn't have surgery. And so she was left with shards of bone right into her flesh. And every time we moved her, and she was bedridden at that time, it would be excruciatingly painful. And I knew this, and during this particular period, I was staying at Meherazad, Gohair and Falu, and had gone with Shelley for some weeks. And I was there spending the night in Falu's room, which is adjacent to Roda's, as you know, so I could be available for her in the night. And finally, after it's actually been some months at this point, after her surgery, and I knew the pain was so excruciating to her. And I asked her, Rhoda, I know that the pain is so excruciating, and yet never once have you made the slightest complaint, the slightest indication of that. And she looked at me and she said, Judy, I saw Meher Baba suffer. This, which I knew was excruciating, this is nothing. And she meant it with her whole heart. And that to me was the inner quality of her unflinching love for Mayor Baba that I had the privilege to share, really to witness throughout the latter years of her life. And you, of course, since you came into life, and I thank Baba for it.
Thank you, very sweet. That was very sweet.
Yeah, she was really some woman and so unassuming that people didn't tend to notice her. And yet she was the one, as you said in your story, that Baba called over, or that told her father how to receive fish or anything else from Baba, even when she was a little girl. And so Baba knew those inner qualities from the very beginning, of course, and she manifested them clear to the end.
It's true. You are very blessed.
Yeah, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Thank you, Judy. I know you did have a unique opportunity. Wow. Next, Viola.
Baba, and thank you for sharing so much. So good to see you both.
Jai Baba.
Thank you, Baba. Thank you, Betty. And I just had light memories of Rhoda, how beautiful she was and kind. So I remember being able to be around a little and struggle with things, personalities, this and that. And your mom could not have been more kind and more generous. And she taught me 2 little ditties, which you probably already know yourself. And she was suffering a lot, I know. 'Tis easy to be happy when life goes by with a song, but the man worthwhile is the man who can smile when everything's gone dead wrong. Oh, fear not in a world like this, and thou shalt know ere long how sublime a thing it is to suffer and be strong. And it just, that, and then she taught me this lovely prayer. All of these, I only imagine you had from childhood, which was, thank thee, Lord, for the food we eat. Thank thee, Lord, for the world so sweet. Thank thee, Lord, for the birds that sing. Thank thee, Lord, for everything. And she had the ability to be like a mom to me. She was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing your life with her and memories, and thank you.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Sorry. Bill, I'm calling you. I have to learn to unmute.
Jai Baba, Meherwan, so happy to see you both again after so long. And
Jai Baba, Bill.
hey, Baba, I have a picture I'd like to show that from 1974, your mom at Baba's Samadhi.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
And that was the same year, I believe, that I met you and your whole family at your flat in Mumbai. I was staying at your Aunt Nargisa's place. Ultimate Baba bed and breakfast for those wearily coming off those airplane flights back at that time. And one of my most singular memory of your mom was when she was living and your dad were living in Meherabad, and so many morning artis. I would see her coming with a tiny bouquet of flowers to offer Baba. And she did it with such love and devotion, and I would say to myself, surely this is one of Baba's real gopis. Very, very touched. Now, I don't know if we have time or not here, but I made a recording of her singing one of Mira's bhajans at the Samadhi, and I have a complete translation of that bhajan to read to you all if you'd like to hear it. Betty, we have just about
We have time. We have plenty of time. We have another
Okay,
2
I've got
more.
my little, I just got to set this up. I got my little boombox here. And these recordings are like 40 years old, but let me just do this. Turn it on and
Bill, do you know how to turn on your original sound?
it's on. It's on.
Oh, excellent. Man,
Yeah,
you
original
have.
sound is on. So this should
Okay.
sound pretty good. Now I'll read the let me read the translation first. Let me read the translation first because it's so deeply moving and hark, my friend, this is a Mira bhajan. I am mad with love, but no one knows my pain. Only a wounded person will know the state of another injured, one who has sustained a wound. Only someone who's become a sati. Now, sati was, for a period in Rajput history, the wives would immolate themselves, some on their husband's funeral pyre. Only someone who has become a sati will know the feelings of another sati. Only one who has become a sati. My bed seems to be atop a set of needles. How on earth will I be able to sleep? My beloved's bed is in the heavens. By what means can I engineer a meeting? Suffering from unbearable pain, I have been roaming several forests, but I have not found any physician to cure me. O Lord of Mira, I declare that my pain will cease only when my beloved Krishna becomes my physician. Let me try to get this again. CD. Read. Yeah, I got to go to number 15 here, and it should come off.
मैं तो प्रेम दीवानी मैं तो प्रेम दीवानी मेरा दर्द न जाने दर्द न जाने दर्द न जाने कोई सकीरी मैं तो प्रेम दीवानी सूलियों पर सेज हमारी किस बिद सोना हो हाँ सूलियों पर सेज हमारी किस बिद सोना हो गगन मंडल पे सेज पिया की किस बिद मिलना हो मेरा दर्द न जाने दर्द न जाने दर्द न जाने कोई सकीरी मैं तो प्रेम दीवानी घायल की गत घायल जाने की जन लागी होए सकीरी घायल की गत घायल जाने की जन लागी होए जहर की गत जहर जाने की जन जोहर होए दर्द की मारी बन बन दोनों दर्द की मारी बन तो प्रेम दीवानी मैं तो प्रेम दीवानी
The voice of a pure heart.
So touching, so beautiful.
Jai Baba.
Thank you. Jai Baba.
Ajay, did you have something to say? Just saying hello.
No, I was saying that's just so beautiful, just touching, very touching. Thank you. Jai Baba.
Oh, I agree. Bob, Aaron. Let's see.
Hello.
Hi.
That was so beautiful, Bill. Just to add a little bit to what people have already said, I think the impression has come across beautifully of the level of human being that Rhoda was. I took care of her as a physician during the last 10 or so years of her life, through Shelley or when I was at Meherazad. I happened to be sitting on the bench outside Falu's room when she fell in the compound. And typical, I could hear the thump and knew something was gone. Not a sound escaped her lips. There was even then not a complaint when she'd broken her hip. And she'd had a lot of problems up to that point, but never complained. Amazing person, always, well, I mean, really, truly concerned about others having to bother with her and her health problems. Just a wonderful human being. So fortunate to have known her in the small way that I did as another example of how to live for him. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Dana. Are you?
It's hard to know what to say about Rhoda. She was so incredibly sweet, one of the sweetest people I've ever met. But I have a couple of particular memories of her. Well, one, nobody's mentioned how mischievous she was. That laugh that she had, that mischievous laugh was so wonderful. And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, I'm hearing something else, sorry. But one thing I wanted to share that she said to me, my memory, unlike Meherwan's, my long-term memory is also going along with my short-term memory. but one memory comes back to me, and I wish I could remember the context of it. Why, the reason she said this to me. I mean, the reason will be clear from what she said, but I don't know what had come up that made her say it particularly. And I don't know if somebody, I think she said someone had said this to her, but whether it was Baba or who, I'm so sorry, I can't remember. But what she said to me that sticks with me is, she said, Baba, she said, Dana, have a big heart, don't have a small heart. And she made this gesture, have a big heart, don't have a small heart. And then she made it very clear what she meant by that. She meant don't be easily hurt. And I thought, oh, that is something to really take in. Because if you're not easily hurt, then you won't give out hurt also. I mean, that's what I got from it. And I got from her that this was something, this was a trait she had noticed needed some correction in me. And I've tried to work on it since. And I think it's helped me immensely that she said that to me. And I don't know whether she ever was easily hurt and that's how it came to me, but anyway, that was a wonderful tip, I would say, that she gave me. Now, there's another thing I'd like to share, which is a bit tricky because it involves the Samadhi and me and Rhoda's death day. On the day that Rhoda went to Baba, I happened to be at Meherabad on my way to Meherazad, actually. I did not know when I went to take darshan at the Samadhi that Rhoda had gone to Baba. In fact, I had some nutritional supplements for her that in my bag that Shelley had asked me to bring, and I was going to deliver them to Meherazad that day. But before I went to Meherazad, I went up to Meherabad to take darshan, and as I approached the Samadhi and went into the Samadhi, the feeling of joy, unbelievable joy, was so fantastically powerful, it practically knocked me out of the Samadhi. I mean, I had never experienced, and to this day have never experienced that experience that I had bowing down in the Samadhi that day. I subsequently found out when I went down the hill and checked in that Rhoda had just gone to Baba. And all I can say is, I feel like I might have walked in on the reunion, and just because that's the only explanation I had for the experience I had that day. And I don't think I ever shared that with you, Meherwan. So I thought that was something worth sharing, although I can't put it into words properly at all.
Thank you. We can feel it.
It was an incredible gift, and it was just, I happened to be there at the right moment. Yeah, it was an incredible gift. And it also, of course, I felt quite heartbroken when I got out to when I realized I had missed her. But then I thought, no, I didn't. But we had some wonderful adventures together, but I can't even describe them. But I had a lovely experience taking care of her as well for some period of time at Meherazad. And I had another wonderful experience of staying with her in the guest house on the center earlier. Anyway, lovely, lovely memories. And thank you so much for your stories that were just exquisite. I'll end there because my memory, as I say, is not as good as it once was. But Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Dana.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
That was wonderful, Dana. Thank you so much. You really brought her to life, certainly for me. Thank you. Bob, did you have more to tell, or did I just not lower your hand?
No, I actually don't have anything to tell. I was going to ask Meherwan if he would think it's appropriate if he told the story of Rhoda's last visit to Baba and the circumstances, if he thought that was appropriate. It's a great story.
She had gone to see Baba, and I think this was in, now I'm a little confused with whether it was in December. It was the Naoroji ceremony and the wedding ceremony that we were all there in 68. But my mom did go to see Baba but it was 1 or 2 weeks before he dropped his body. And she did this on her own, knowing that, I mean, Baba didn't call her, but she went on her own. She knew full well that she may not be able to see him. Baba did see her. And
She took the train with the
right, yes. She kept, and she felt that she had to go. From our apartment in Bombay, the railway station is maybe not even a mile in distance. And you can hear the train whistle. And it was there all the time. But at this particular time, when she would be, every time she would hear the whistle, she would feel the call. She would feel the pull that I'm being called. And then she had to see Baba. And I remember even I said, but why are you doing this? When you know that Baba has not called you and he's in seclusion. But she had to do it. And she went and Baba did see her. Yeah, Baba did. Adi, when she went to Nagar and Adi was there, says Adi is actually scolding her. He's saying, what is the matter with you? He does not even see me. When I go to Meherazad, he does not even have me come in the room to see me. And what makes you think that he's going to see you? But she says, that's fine. If he doesn't see me, that's okay. But Baba did see her. And then sent her back with Sarosh Irani. And it was she would obey Baba to the last word, literally. And she's doing this of her own. And many, many years later, I read extensively, many things. So I came across it's a really beautiful, if you will, it goes something like this. Love and then do as you please and do whatever you will. See, and who says this is also, if you will just give me, I'm just going to go off the screen to see if I can find that somewhere here. And it was, it's a very beautiful.
We have one person who wanted to see a photo. Can I show the photo while you look? And then
Yes, you go ahead. You just go ahead.
You can look and you can, if you find it, you can say, I just wanted to show this.
Oh yeah, here it is. I got it.
Okay.
And I'm going to read this so I don't mess it up. A disinterested, selfless act of disobedience arising solely and spontaneously from love for the master is more acceptable to him than any other individual's self-righteous conceitedness and pride of his own scrupulous obedience. It is this totally overwhelming and disarming power of love that can efface any and all transgressions that are committed out of love. And quoting St. Augustine of Hippo, love and then do whatever you will. From its root, nothing can spring but good. And then St. Paul says something similar. Love is the greatest virtue. Love conquers all. It is in its very simplest essence, love can do no wrong. So that love can do no wrong comes from St. Paul.
Beautiful.
And as I'm scrolling down, I see another one incident here, and that happened in Baba's, amongst Baba's Mandi. There's a story of Dr. Ghani. If you want, I can share that with you.
Yes.
And Dr. Ghani was at one time, also in his life, was in dire straits. And out of sheer exasperation and dejection and in despair, that he had been with Baba all this time, and in spite of all of these things, he couldn't get out of his predicament. And so one day, he decided to commit suicide. So how to carry this out? So he plans upon getting drunk and then jump off the cliff. And this was in some place in Lonavala, where he used to stay. It so happened that he did go and, according to his plan, he bought himself a bottle of liquor, And the Muslims don't drink. That's considered haram. But here he was desperate, and he was going to do anything to carry out his plan. So he goes climbs up a hill, and near the cliffside, he just sits there and drinks, gets drunk, and as he's drinking, the cool breeze is there, and he falls asleep. As this is going on, Baba is in Pune, and he all of a sudden decides to come to Naoroji at that very time, something similar to what happened with Chanji. And Baba comes with one of his monthly members to Naoroji that very evening, and then finds out about Gunny. And then the next day, Gunny wakes up in the morning. He finds that he couldn't carry out his plan as he had planned, and then he comes back dejected that he couldn't even have the courage to carry out his plan to come back, to jump off the cliff while he was drunk. And then when he meets Baba, Baba consoles him, and he says, and then he feels very guilty towards Baba. I said, Baba, you don't have no idea how much I cursed you last evening. I feel ashamed. And this is what Baba commented. The curses of my lovers is sweeter to my ears than the praises of the whole world. Did you hear that?
Read that again, please.
The curses of my lovers is sweeter to my ears than the praises of the whole world.
Beautiful.
So, Baba himself had said, pure love is matchless in majesty, and it has no parallel in power, and there is no darkness it cannot dispel. So, and these are all these love and then do as you will. This is also from St. Augustine of Hippo.
Would you mind reading again that St. Augustine? I know it's long, but I sure wanted to hear it.
Okay. It's the exact quote from St. Augustine of Hippo is love, and then do whatever you will. From its root, nothing can spring but good. And St. Paul says, love is the greatest virtue. Love conquers all. It is in its very simplest essence, love can do no wrong. So anything done out of love, which has no self-interest in it, is acceptable to him.
Could you also read from the beginning, the quotes before that?
Okay. That is not a quote. The one of what I said was a disinterested, selfless act of disobedience. Is that the one you're referring to?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
But that's not a quote. That's a comment. It's a disinterested and a selfless act of disobedience that arises solely and spontaneously from love for the master is more acceptable to him than any individual's self-righteous conceitedness and pride of his own scrupulous obedience.
Who said that?
Sorry?
Was that from you personally? Or
This is my comment. It's not Baba's comment.
Okay, that's a great comment.
Yeah, the comment based upon, what is it based on? It is based on what I just narrated from St. Augustine, St. Paul, and Dr. Ghani's story. Baba saying, my curses of my lovers is sweeter to my ears than the praises of the whole world. And what Baba had said about pure love.
And your mother's brave act to follow her intuition and the dream
So
That
what
was-
we thought, what I thought at that time was she was disobeying Baba's order, was actually not so. And I learned that much later in life. It was out of love. And that's the reason Baba saw her. Many people came to see Baba. Baba would send them away without seeing them. But anything done out of love is acceptable to him. And that is the beauty of love.
Beautiful, beautiful. What a lovely, lovely story ending to. It's been a great time.
Yes. We all had a lovely time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You represent her well, Meherwan.
Thank you, Meherwan, Jai Baba.
Thank you. Jai
Thank
Baba. Jai Baba.
Thank you so much, Meherwan. It's been really, Baba's presence has been with us through you, remembering dear Rhoda. Jai Meher Baba.
Jai Meher Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Meher.
Jai Baba. Thank you, Meherwan. I hope
Jai
you
Baba.
come back and tell us more stories.
Now I'm going to press the red button and say Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Meherwan and
Jai
Zenobia.
Baba.
Wonderful.
Jai Baba.
Jai
Thank you, Meherwan.
Baba, Zenobia. Jai
Jai
Baba.
Meherwan.
Jai Baba.
Avatar
Jai
Meher
Baba.
Baba ki jai. I'll say Avatar Meher Baba
Baba
ki
ki
jai.
jai.
Avatar Meher
Meher Baba
Jai.
ki
ki
jai.
jai. Thank you, thank you.
Beautiful program. Thank you.
I'm going to press the red button. Jai Baba.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba.
Jai Baba.